picture this. You're sitting in a massive packed auditorium,
Okay.
and the air is just thick with anticipation.
Right.
Suddenly, everyone around you, I mean, your closest friends, the classmates you actually respect, the people who basically dictate the whole social hierarchy of your school, they all stand up to applaud something happening on stage.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
Right. But you stay seated because, with absolute certainty that what they're cheering for is just fundamentally wrong.
Yeah.
So you're glued to that chair, and in that exact moment, the invisible pull to just, bend your knees, stand up, and blend in it feels heavier than a literal ton of bricks.
It really does. It's like a physical weight pressing down on your shoulders.
Exactly. Well, welcome to today's Duck Dive, everyone. We are so thrilled you're tuning in. Today, we're exploring a tension that, honestly, every single teenager on the planet is navigating right now.
Oh, absolutely.
We're calling it pressure or purpose. Standing strong when everyone else isn't.
And it's a tension that pretty much defines the human experience, but it totally reaches its absolute peak during your teenage years.
Yeah, for sure.
Like that auditorium scenario you just mentioned, that isn't just a thought experiment. It's a daily reality. I mean, whether it's happening in a crowded cafeteria, a locker room, or, across your social media feeds.
Right. So our mission today is to really deconstruct that intensely uncomfortable feeling of being caught between the crowd and your conscience.
Which is not a fun place to be.
Not at all. We're going to examine the actual mechanics of peer pressure, why it feels like a literal survival threat, and, most importantly, how to actively choose your purpose instead.
Yeah.
And to do this, we're not using like a modern sociology textbook today. We're pulling our insights directly from the Bible.
Which, honestly, offers a surprisingly sophisticated lens on human psychology.
Yeah.
We tend to think that ancient texts wouldn't understand the nuances of, like, a modern high school ecosystem or digital group dynamic.
Right, because they didn't have smartphones.
Exactly. But the human drive to conform, the fear of being exiled, the heavy machinery of social compliance, that stuff hasn't changed one bit across millennia.
It really hasn't. So, okay, to really get inside the machinery of this kind of pressure, we have to look at one of the most extreme historical case studies of nonconformity ever recorded.
Oh, this is a good one.
It's the story of 3 teenagers, actually, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And this takes place in the ancient empire of Babylon, which is recorded in Daniel chapter 3.
Yeah, if we really want to understand modern social pressure, Babylon is the perfect starting point. I mean, Babylon wasn't just a city, it was an ancient superpower.
A massive superpower.
Right. And the king, Nebuchadnezzar, he was basically a master of psychological dominance.
Yeah, he knew exactly what he was doing.
Oh, totally. He had just conquered Jerusalem, taken its brightest young people, which included these 3 teenagers, and essentially dragged them hundreds of miles from home just to assimilate them into Babylonian culture.
Just stripping away everything they knew.
Exactly. He changed their names, their education, their diets. He was systematically erasing their identities.
It's basically complete forced conformity.
Precisely. And the climax of this whole assimilation campaign is this giant golden statue.
Right, the statue.
King Nebuchadnezzar builds this monument on the plain of Dura. And it is 90 feet tall.
Wait, really? 90 feet?
90 feet. It's
Yeah.
just gleaming in the Mesopotamian sun, visible for miles. So he gathers all the officials, the influencers, the leaders of his vast empire.
Everyone who's anyone.
Exactly. And the decree goes out. When the massive imperial symphony starts playing, every single person must fall to the ground and worship the statue.
Okay, let's pause on that word worship because in a modern context, we often just reduce worship to singing songs in a religious building.
Right, like a Sunday morning service.
Yeah, but Nebuchadnezzar wasn't holding a church service here. This is a geopolitical loyalty test, right?
It was an absolute pledge of allegiance to the state. In the ancient Near East, religion and politics were basically indistinguishable.
Oh, interesting.
So by bowing to the statue, you were physically demonstrating that the Babylonian Empire and its gods had ultimate authority over your life, your conscience, and your truth.
So to refuse wasn't just a religious disagreement, it was treason.
Treason. Exactly.
And the penalty for treason was the literal pressure cooker. I mean, the fiery furnace.
Yeah, a blazing furnace, which was specifically designed for public execution. So, the music starts.
Yeah.
It's a complete sensory overload.
I can only imagine.
The crowd of thousands, maybe tens of thousands, just immediately drops to the dirt in this massive wave of compliance.
Right. Except for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego,
Yep.
they stay standing. Now, here is where we need to look at the mechanics of their decision. Because they didn't stay standing just to be, edgy or rebellious.
No, not at all.
They had a conflicting higher directive,
Right. They were anchoring their behavior to a foundational boundary found in Exodus 20.3.
the Ten Commandments.
Exactly, which states, "You shall have no other gods before me." For them, God was the ultimate reality and the only true authority.
Yeah.
So bowing to a state-mandated golden statue would be a direct violation of their core identity and their devotion to God.
But let's play devil's advocate for a second. If I'm standing on that plane, right, and I see thousands of people hitting the dirt, and I can literally feel the heat of a furnace on my
The
face.
human brain is going to look for a loophole.
Exactly. Why not just pretend to bow? Like, why not just kneel down and, I don't know, tie your sandal while the music plays?
Right, I'm just stretching my calves.
Yeah. I mean, God knows what is in your heart, right? Why take the fatal risk of standing out?
Because true integrity doesn't have loopholes. They understood that external compliance is conformity.
Oh, wow. That's a good point.
If they bowed physically, well, mentally objecting, they were still handing Nebuchadnezzar the visual victory. They were still telling the crowd that the king's terror was stronger than their God.
Wow.
And the psychological terror of that moment just cannot be overstated. Imagine being one of 3 vertical bodies in a sea of thousands of horizontal ones.
Right.
The isolation would be deafening.
That isolation brings us right into the modern reality for the teenagers listening to this.
Yes.
I mean, we might not have a megalomaniac king threatening us with a literal fiery furnace today.
Thankfully.
Yeah. But the psychological heat of standing out in a high school hallway or, refusing to participate in a toxic group chat, it feels just as intense. Why does doing the right thing sometimes feel like you are walking to your own execution?
Honestly, it comes down to evolutionary biology and how our brains are wired.
Really? Biology.
Yeah. In human history, being exiled from your tribe meant certain death. You couldn't survive alone in the wild.
That makes sense.
Consequently, our brains evolved to view social rejection as a literal threat to our physical survival.
So it isn't just an emotional discomfort, it's way deeper.
Not at all. Neuroscientists have actually found that the exact same part of your brain that lights up when you experience physical pain, it's called the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, is the exact same part that lights up when you experience social rejection.
Wait, really? The exact same part?
Yes. So when you're sitting at a lunch table and everyone starts tearing down a classmate behind their back and you refuse to join in, your amygdala starts firing warning signals.
It's like an alarm going off.
Exactly. Your brain is basically screaming, conform or you will be cast out and you will die.
Oh man, that reframes the entire conversation. We're always telling teenagers, just don't give in to peer pressure, but we are actually asking them to fight a biological imperative that is screaming at them to survive.
Yep. We're asking them to fight their own survival instincts.
So how do we actually bypass that? Because the Bible points to Romans 12.2, which says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind."
Okay, so the Greek word used there for conform literally means to be pressed into a mold.
Like a literal physical mold.
Yeah. Think about pouring liquid plastic into a cast. So your school, culture, the media, it has a specific mold. It expects a certain type of behavior, a certain type of cruelty, a certain type of compromise.
Yeah.
And if you just go with gravity, you will naturally be pressed into that shape.
And today, that mold isn't just the physical environment around us. The most efficient conformity machine ever built is just sitting right in our pockets.
Social media.
Yeah.
It is a massive amplification engine for peer pressure. Because now, the crowd you're trying to please isn't just the 50 kids in your grade.
No, it's the whole internet.
It is an algorithmic audience of thousands. The pressure to curate a flawless fake persona or to jump onto a trending challenge, even if it's mean-spirited or dangerous or degrading, it's just relentless.
And it rewards you for it.
Exactly. The algorithm rewards conformity with dopamine hits disguised as likes and views.
Okay, so if social media is an algorithm designed to conform us to the world's pattern, how do we renew our mind, like Romans 12 says?
We need a counter-algorithm.
A counter-algorithm, I love that. And the Bible actually provides an incredible piece of code for this in Philippians 4.8.
It really does.
It serves as a mental filter. It instructs us to focus on whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable. Like, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about those things.
And that verse is just a radical act of rebellion against the modern attention economy,
Seriously.
because the digital world profits off
Right.
outrage, anxiety, and comparison, right?
Hmm.
But Philippians 4.8 tells you to actively hijack your own attention.
Hijack it back.
Yes. If you run your feed through that filter, and a post isn't true, like if it's a rumor or a manipulated image, you reject it.
Right.
If a trend isn't noble or pure, if it relies on humiliating someone else, you just refuse to engage. You are essentially training your brain's neural pathways to seek out truth instead of just mindlessly seeking out the crowd.
But implementing that filter, it guarantees you'll face the third and probably most paralyzing pressure point, the fear of judgment.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the moment you start participating in those toxic trends, the crowd turns on you. They're like, who does she think she is? Or why is he being so weird?
Yeah, you become the target.
Exactly. And this takes us right back to Daniel chapter 3.
Yeah.
So Nebuchadnezzar finds out the three teenagers didn't bow, and he is furious.
Livid.
He pulls them in and basically gives them an ultimatum. Bow right now, or you go into the fire, and what God will be able to rescue you from my hand.
And their response, this is in Daniel 3.16 through 18, it is just a masterclass in emotional and spiritual maturity.
It really is.
They tell the most powerful man on earth that they don't even need to defend themselves.
Which is so bold.
So bold. They state clearly that the God they serve is more than able to deliver them from the blazing furnace. But then they add a phrase that literally echoes through history.
Gives me chills.
They say, but even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up.
Even if he does not. I mean, that completely shatters the transactional view of faith we usually have. A lot of times we think, well, if I do the right thing, God will protect my reputation. If I refuse to gossip, God will make sure people still like me. But these three guys decoupled their obedience from their outcome.
They absolutely did. They acknowledged that God had the power to save them, but they didn't make their loyalty conditional on their safety.
Right.
They were basically saying, we might burn, we might lose our lives, our status, our futures, but our devotion to truth is not dependent on a comfortable outcome.
Wow.
And that is the ultimate defeat of fear. When you no longer let the outcome dictate your integrity, the crowd loses all its leverage over you.
Okay, theory is great, but let's get ruthlessly practical here.
Let's do it.
If I am a 16-year-old listening to this, and my entire social survival feels tied to my status at school, how do I actually build that kind of bulletproof integrity?
It's tough.
When standing up means sitting completely alone at the lunch table for the rest of the semester, how do I actually do it? Well, the Bible lays out a clear, functional blueprint.
It does. And the first mechanism of that blueprint is knowing your foundational design.
Okay.
You cannot stand against a strong cultural current if you don't have a heavier anchor. Ephesians 2.10 tells us, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do."
And the Greek word there is poema, right? Where we get the word poem or masterpiece.
Exactly. It implies a bespoke, intentional creation. You are not mass-produced.
I love that.
You were designed with a specific purpose to reflect a specific character in the world. Think of a massive ship on the ocean.
Okay.
The only reason a ship doesn't capsize in a violent hurricane is because it has a deep, heavy keel beneath the water stabilizing it.
Right, that weight underneath.
Knowing your specific God-given purpose is your keel. When the winds of peer pressure hit, you don't tip over, because your identity isn't just floating on the surface of public opinion.
That's a great visual, but a keel only keeps you upright. It doesn't necessarily make the hurricane less terrifying, you know?
Fair point.
When the fire is literally right in front of you, purpose alone might not be enough to stop your knees from buckling. We need actual power.
Which brings us to the second mechanism, sourcing your strength externally.
Okay.
You cannot biohack your way out of the fear of rejection. You need an infusion of power that is greater than your biology. So let's look at the climax of the story in Babylon.
Right, the furnace.
The three teenagers are thrown into the furnace. It is so hot it literally kills the guards who throw them in.
Which is insane.
But when King Nebuchadnezzar looks into the flames, he's terrified. He leaps to his feet because he doesn't see three bodies burning.
Right.
He sees four men, untied, walking around in the fire, completely unharmed. And he notes that the fourth man looks like a son of the gods.
So God didn't put the fire out, he got into the fire with them.
That is the pivotal insight. God's promise is rarely, that he will remove the pressure or the awkwardness or the difficulty of standing out.
Right. He doesn't just teleport them out of there.
No. His promise is presence. Isaiah 41:2 puts it explicitly. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you.
Yeah.
The biblical text insists that through prayer and immersing yourself in his word, you actually connect to the presence of the God who walks into the flames right alongside you.
So we have our purpose as an anchor, and we have God's presence as our power source. But there's a third, highly practical element to this blueprint. We need horizontal support. We need a crew.
Yes. Proverbs 27:17 tells us, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another.
I've heard that one a lot.
Yeah, but iron sharpening iron is not a gentle, passive process.
Right. It's violent.
It involves friction. It takes sparks. You need friends who are willing to create that friction in your life when they see you slipping into the world's mold. And notice that in Babylon, there were 3 of them.
It's basically the concept of distributed cognitive load.
Oh, say more about that.
Well, when your amygdala is screaming at you to conform, your rational brain shuts down.
Right.
If you're alone, you will almost always cave to the panic.
Absolutely.
But if you have 2 friends standing right next to you, their presence reality checks your panic. They carry the weight of the moment with you. It's exactly like trying to beat a boss level on hard mode.
Yeah.
If you try to solo it, it's an instant game over. You need a solid squad, your crew, to watch your back.
That is spot on. Isolation is basically the enemy's most effective tactic.
Totally.
Because if he can make you feel like you are the only one who cares about truth, he can break you. You have to find a youth group, a circle of friends, or a mentor who shares your core values.
Okay, let's translate all of this ancient wisdom into like Tuesday morning homeroom.
Let's do it.
We have 2 highly actionable challenges for you to execute this week. First is the purpose over pressure moment.
Okay, the goal here is to utilize the neuroscience of pre-decision.
Pre-decision,
Yeah.
like making the choice before the emotional spike even happens.
Exactly. You already know where the traps are in your weekly schedule.
Oh, for sure.
You know which specific class, which lunch table, or which group chat on a Friday night is going to pressure you to compromise your character.
You can see it coming a mile away.
Right. So the challenge is to decide today how you will respond when the trap springs. If you wait until the heat of the moment, that biological urge to belong will completely overpower your willpower.
Your amygdala takes over.
Yep. But if you visualize the scenario and
Mhm.
pre-decide your response, whether that is walking away or speaking up, you build a neural pathway of resistance before the adrenaline ever hits.
That raises a really nuanced question, though.
What's that?
When you are in that pressure cooker, how do you know if you should just silently remove yourself to avoid the drama versus when you really have a moral obligation to actually speak up and explain why you aren't participating?
That is a great question. And it requires deep situational awareness and discernment.
Okay.
Often, silently walking away is actually the most devastating blow you can deal to a toxic situation.
Really? Just leaving?
Yeah. If a group is gossiping and you simply stand up and leave, your absence removes your endorsement. It starves the fire of oxygen without needlessly escalating the conflict.
That makes total sense.
However, walking away is insufficient if active harm is occurring.
Right.
If someone is being bullied, manipulated, or if you are directly demanded to compromise your faith, like Nebuchadnezzar demanding a physical bow, that is when you channel Daniel chapter 3.
You have to speak up.
You don't scream or act self-righteous. You speak up calmly and firmly and say, I am not participating in this, and here is why.
Got it. Okay, the second challenge is the Philippians filter challenge. We talked about it earlier, but this week, it's time to actually execute it.
It is time to take out the digital trash.
Yes.
For the next 7 days, run every single piece of media you consume through Philippians 4.8. Is this TikTok true?
Right.
Is this Instagram account noble? Is this YouTube trend pure and admirable?
And if the answer is no, you sever the connection. You unfollow, you block, you close the app. You just stop allowing the algorithm to pour your mind into the mold of anxiety and outrage.
And finally, we have to conclude with a focus on prayer.
Yes.
Because standing up to pressure is exhausting. You will face decision fatigue.
It drains you.
So the prayer challenge is a daily surrender, asking God for the courage of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. It shifts your mindset from, just white-knuckling your way through high school to actively resting in a strength that is infinitely larger than your own.
It's the realization that you don't have to generate the power, you just have to maintain the connection to the source.
Exactly.
Well, before we sign off today, do you have a final thought for the listener to carry with them into the week?
I do. Consider the asymmetry of courage.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
We talk a lot about how conformity is contagious, but courage is equally, if not more, contagious. Let's go back to your opening scenario.
Okay, the auditorium.
You're in that massive auditorium. The pressure to stand up with the crowd is suffocating, but the moment you make the concrete decision to stay seated, rooted in your purpose,
Right.
you break the psychological spell of the room.
Wow.
And the kid sitting 2 rows behind you, who's just about to cave to the pressure, they see the back of your head. They see you refusing to bow. And because you held the line, they find the strength to stay seated too.
That's incredible.
Your individual integrity might be the exact catalyst someone else needs to survive their own fire.
You don't just survive the furnace, you change the atmosphere for everyone else inside it.
Yes.
That is a profound truth to end on. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We are incredibly grateful you spent this time exploring these massive, life-altering concepts with us.
It's been great.
If you want to keep equipping yourself and digging into these crucial topics, please make sure you hit the button to follow the podcast so you never miss our future content. Until next time, remember your purpose, find your crew, and stand strong. See you later.